Have you ever felt like your body is changing in ways you didn't expect? Aging is a natural part of life, but it can sometimes leave us feeling uncertain or even less connected to those we love. In today's video, we'll be exploring the emotional journey of intimacy as we grow older, the physical changes that come with it, and how to rediscover deep, meaningful connections. Stay with us until the end to learn how aging can be embraced with grace and how intimacy can evolve into something even more, a profound over time. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Your support means a lot, so if you find value in this video, please give it a thumbs up to help spread our message. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on today's topic. If you enjoy the content, please comment one below. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave a 0. Your feedback is crucial, and it helps me create better videos that align with your interests. Now let's get started. Hello, my name is either Griselda, and as I sit here reflecting on the decades that have shaped me, I am overwhelmed by the depth and richness of my life. Each wrinkle on my face, each silver strand of hair tells a story of triumphs, heartaches, laughter, and most importantly, the wisdom that comes with growing older. As someone who has lived through countless phases of life, from the exuberance of youth to the quiet contemplation of old age, I feel compelled to share something that doesn't get spoken about nearly enough. It's a topic that often hides in the shadows of embarrassment and fear, yet it affects many men and couples. As the years pass by, I want to talk about the natural process of penis shrinkage in old age. Now, I know this may be a subject that some find awkward or uncomfortable, but from the bottom of my heart, I believe we need to talk about it openly. In all its complexity, is not something to dread. It is a journey that can be embraced with grace and dignity. If only we learn to confront the changes that come with it. Aging does not diminish our worth. In fact, it depends the beauty of our experiences. And just as our skin wrinkles our hair, grays and our joints stiffen, so too does the male body undergo its own transformations. I remember so vividly the days of my youth when intimacy seemed inseparable from the vitality of our bodies. When I first met the man who would become my husband, I was captivated by his energy, his masculinity, and yes, by the physical passion we shared. He was strong, confident, and in those early days, sex was fiery and exhilarating. We couldn't keep our hands off each other, and every touch felt like it could set the world on fire. It was a time of exploration where every embrace was charged with the electricity of youth. Our love felt invincible, and intimacy was tied to the physical connection we shared. But as life moved forward, so did we, the oh nay strong bodies we both had, began to show signs of where my husband, always so full of vitality, began to notice changes in his body that neither of us were prepared for. The first sign was the decline in his erections. At first, it was easy to dismiss as just a passing thing, something that would correct itself with time. But the truth was, this was a new chapter, one we hadn't anticipated. His erections became less firm, less frequent, and sometimes, before we could even begin to enjoy the closeness, they would disappear altogether. It was as if his body was betraying him, and I could see the frustration in his eyes, the disappointment he carried silently. In those moments, my heart for him, as his wife, I wanted to be there for him in every way, not just physically, but emotionally. I knew this change was affecting his confidence, his sense of masculinity. I could see it in the way he carried himself in the quiet moments, when he thought I wasn't watching. But I also knew something else. Intimacy doesn't die with age. It simply evolves. We were not the same people we had been in our 20s. But that didn't mean we couldn't experience a deep connection in this new stage of life. Our love wasn't just about physical pleasure anymore. It had become about trust, understanding, and a bond that goes far beyond the surface. We began to redefine what intimacy meant for us. No longer was it solely about physical performance or the ability to sustain an erection. It became about closeness. I faced these changes together. I learned one of the most important lessons of my life. Love, real love, doesn't depend on the physical. Yes, our bodies age, and yes, they change in ways that can be difficult to accept. But that does not mean we lose our ability to connect deeply with one another. On the contrary, the challenges of aging can bring couples closer if we allow them to. The physical changes that come with time are just another part of the human experience, one that, if embraced, can lead to number one below, to let me know that you are still watching this video with me one evening. I decided to bring it up, gently sensing his discomfort, but knowing that avoidance wasn't the answer. The look on his face when I mentioned it told me everything his eyes once filled with confidence and warmth now reflected uncertainty and even shame. My heart for him. This was a man who had faced countless challenges in life with unwavering strength. But here he was, feeling as though he had won that was less reliant on physicality and more grounded in emotional and spiritual closeness. As we began to navigate this new chapter, we discovered something beautiful. Intimacy became less about performance and more about presence. We started to cherish the quiet moments, holding hands while lying in bed, exchanging tender kisses without any pressure or expectation. We found new ways to be close, ways that didn't require the same physical outlet as before, but still brought immense joy and an invisible wall that neither of us had directly acknowledged. But both could feel my heart was heavy because I knew what was causing it. My husband, the strong, proud man I had loved for so many years, was quietly struggling with a change in his body that had shaken his confidence to the core. So I reached out, took his hand, and said, "We need to talk." I didn't want to push him, but I needed him to know that I understood. "I know you've been feeling different," I said gently, "and I want you to know that as any physical act we had once shared, we found joy in simply being together, in touching each other's skin, in feeling the warmth of each other's presence. There was no longer any pressure to perform, no sense of failure. If things didn't go a certain way, one of the most beautiful realizations we had during this time was that pleasure didn't need to be tied to an erection. We began to explore new ways of connecting that didn't rely on traditional notions of sex we spent more time in for, are about far more than physical attraction or sexual performance. They are about the deep emotional connection that grows stronger with time. The trust and understanding that only comes from years of shared experiences. They are about standing by each other through. It taught us that real intimacy isn't about physical perfection. It's about emotional connection. It's about being there for each other, through the highs and the lows, through the changes and the challenges, and knowing that your love is strong enough to withstand it all in the end. It was the emotional intimacy we built that made our relationship about connection, about being present, about the way we touched each other with kindness and love. We learned to appreciate the quiet moments of intimacy in a way that we hadn't before. The little things, a soft touch, a lingering look, a heartfelt conversation became just as important, if not more so, than the physical act of sex. It wasn't about reaching some predetermined goal, like climax or performance, but about being together in a shared space of love and understanding. We started to see vulnerability, and that vulnerability brought us even closer. We talked about how masculinity isn't defined by the size of a man's penis or his ability to perform in the bedroom. It's about so much more. It's about the love and care. He shows the way he supports his partner, the way he treats others with kindness and respect. The conversation was a turning point. It allowed us to redefine what intimacy meant to us. We began to focus even more on emotional intimacy, on nurturing our connection would resurface. But we worked through them together. We kept the lines of communication open, always talking about how we were feeling and what we needed from each other. We learned to give ourselves grace, to understand that this was a journey, not a destination Looking back now, I feel an immense sense of gratitude for everything we've been through. There's a kind of beauty that can only be found in mature love, a love that has weathered the storms of life, that has adapted, and ability could bring the journey was far from straightforward. I watched as my husband struggled internally with the changes his body was going through, the physical signs of aging, especially the ones related to his sexual health, had a way of creeping into our relationship in unexpected ways. It wasn't just about the loss of sexual function. It was the emotional weight that came with it. The societal narrative that ties a man's worth to his physical abilities was something my husband had opportunity to grow even closer. It was a chance to redefine what intimacy meant for us, to explore new ways of connecting that weren't tied to physical performance. We learned to find joy and fulfillment in the small moments. A gentle touch, holding hands, a long conversation over a cup of coffee. These gestures, though simple, took on new meaning. They became acts of love that reinforced the bond we had built over decades. It was a different kind of intimacy, one that wasn't about reaching a care and affection. As my husband's relationship with his own body changed, so did our relationship with each other. The pressure to meet societal expectations around sex and performance faded away, and what was left was something far more valuable, an emotional intimacy that had been there all along, but that we had never fully tapped into. We found that the more we focused on being emotionally present for each other, the more fulfilling our physical connection became, even if it looked is the most beautiful part of aging together. As my husband and I have journeyed through the process of aging together, we've encountered a path that has been both unexpected and deeply rewarding. It's a road we hadn't anticipated, filled with subtle discoveries, quiet revelations, and a new understanding of intimacy. We've come to see that while the physical aspects of our relationship may have changed over time, the emotional and spiritual dimensions have grown richer than we could have ever eye of hands as we passed each other in the kitchen, sitting together quietly on the porch, or sharing a conversation late at night when the world had gone to sleep. These moments, which seemed so ordinary on the surface, became some of the most intimate and profound experiences we shared. They were reminders that true intimacy isn't about physical performance. It's about being fully present for one another, about creating a space where we could both be vulnerable, honest, and deeply silly, to explore intimacy in a way that felt authentic to us. We learned to appreciate the beauty in the small moments of connection, the way we looked at after each other, the laughter we shared, and the way we leaned on each other for support. There was no longer a need to chase after the physical intensity of our youth, because what we had now felt more enduring, more sustaining. It's not that physical intimacy disappeared from our relationship. It's that it evolved. We learned to find joy in the ease, not from physical perfection, but from the emotional closeness you share with your partner. As you grow older, you'll find that the love you've built over time becomes your greatest strength, your most cherished gift. Aging together has been one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. It has taught me that love isn't about staying the same. It's about growing together, about finding new ways to connect and express affection, and about continuing to choose each other day after day, through on ourselves and each other. We were making space for a different kind of intimacy, one that was rooted in emotional vulnerability, mutual understanding, and the quiet pleasures that come with a lifetime of shared experiences. The pleasure we once sought from physical fulfillment began to take on new forms. Instead of focusing on physical acts, we found joy in each other's presence. The simple act of sitting together, holding hands, or sharing a laugh became just as meaningful as anything that deeply to offer comfort in ways that didn't always require words. There was a new tenderness in the way we approached intimacy, a tenderness that came from years of knowing each other's hearts, from having weathered life forms together, and from understanding that true love is not about perfection, but about presence. It was in this space that we found a new kind of pleasure. It wasn't the intense physical pleasure that we had once chased in our youth. It was softer, gentler, and more being fully present with your partner, about sharing your vulnerabilities, about trusting each other in ways that go beyond the surface. As we continue to age, my husband and I are still learning, still growing, still discovering new ways to love each other. The pleasure we once sought from physical acts has expanded into a pleasure that is rooted in companionship, in emotional closeness, and in the simple joy of being together. And that I believe is the greatest gift of all aging. May priority was much deeper than the physical experiences we'd once thought were the center of it all. It became more about emotional closeness, about the shared understanding that had grown between us over decades of being together. It became about how we supported each other, how we listened, and how we showed up for one another in the little moments of daily life. What we learned was that the physical changes we were going through didn't diminish our love. They opened the door to new ways of be our true, authentic selves. Without fear of judgment, we began to focus less on what we thought we should be doing and more on simply enjoying the connection we shared. This shift in perspective allowed us to experience intimacy in a way that was richer and more fulfilled than anything we had known in our younger years. As we let go of the need to perform or live up to certain expectations, we found that the pressure lifted. What replaced it was a quiet kind of joy, the joy of simply true intimacy. Isn't about the physical act of sex. It's about the connection between two people, the way they see and understand each other, the way they choose to love and support one another through every phase of life. For those who are facing the same journey, my advice is to embrace it. Aging is not a decline. It's an evolution. It's an opportunity to rediscover your relationship, to find new ways of connecting, and to experience a love that is deeper and more